right, so we'll pretend that we just started. Even though we didn't. What did I just start to write there? A function. A def, a function, right? And of course, what is def short for?
Definition.
Yeah. Ooh, wow.
Right.
There'll be a syntax error if I don't fix something. You see what I got to fix?
Is that extra space?
There is. That's indentation. Okay. Indentation is supposed to occur only after a colon. The first line of a Python program just can't be indented. That will be syntactically incorrect. Okay. So DEF, and then I'll write one that we've written a number of times. Okay. So circle area. So this will be like the Python implementation of the circle area formula. And what do you need? What value must you have to compute circle area? The radius. That's what comes inside of parentheses. If you haven't quite got onto that, that's the parameter. That's what needs a value so that you can then do the computation, so that you can then perform the formula. And then a colon, of course. Yes?
So do you have pi before that?
I'm going to put pi inside. That's actually kind of the whole point, is to put the pi on the inside and then play around with that. Okay, so we do need to define pi. So let me do it inside of the function, which I absolutely can. Anything that can go outside of a function can also go inside of the function as well. So I define pi, and then I tell you what, I'll keep it simple. The area of a circle is pi r squared. So there's pi r squared. And you can definitely do that computation after the return statement. It's simple, so why not? And then, just to prove that this works, I'll run it. And then I will now call the function. That is, I'll actually use this formula. So circle area, and then I need to send a value to the function that will become the value of radius, and then, dang it, ooh, I see what I did. You see what I did? I used R, but I called it radius before, so I'll try it again. So circle area, I'll try a radius of 3 perhaps. Oh, yep, I actually get a value, so I think that is correct. Now, let me show you something else. And again, what I'm ultimately after is scope, variable scope, what that means. And we're about to begin to get a sense of what that is. So let me create a second function, which I will call sphere volume. And that, of course, also needs a value for the radius. And then I'll tell you what I'll do, because I've seen students do it, and I understand perfectly well why. They look at their code and they go, oh, well, I've already defined pi, right? So I don't need to define it again. So I'll just go ahead and return the value of the calculation. So that would be pi. Oops. The formula actually is 4/3 pi r cubed. I know it's a weird formula, isn't it? That's what it is. 4/3 pi r cubed is the formula for the volume of a sphere. 4/3 pi r cubed. Dang it. You think I would finally figure that out. That's like the 12th time today I've done it. So radius cubed, and then I run my code, and then I will call sphere volume. I'll try it with 3, and then we'll watch. Okay. Ooh. Error message. Okay. And now we can begin to talk about scope. Because to understand why it is that we got this error message, we have to understand the concept of variable scope. Let me implore you once again, let me counsel you strongly once again, read the error messages. Want to annoy me? Write some code, throws an error message, and then you come up and I ask you the question, did you read the error message? And you say no. Read your error message. Okay, let's see, what does it say? Well, it says it happened on line number 6. Okay, so there's line number 6. Apparently something's wrong with that. And then it describes the nature of the error. It says name error, pi is not defined. And you might look at that and go, well, yes, it is. Look at line number 2. Well, there's a point we have to make.
Yeah. Did we already talk about this?
Not in the concept of functions, we did. We talked about the possibility that one would not have to double define pi. But actually, that might mislead you in this case, because I thought, well, I've already defined pi, right? Why do I need to double define it? Why do I also need to define it like on a line number between 5 and 6? It's already there, right? Well, what you must understand is this, is that variables that occur within a function are local. That's the right word to use, are local to that function. function. They are defined for that function and that function alone, okay? That means that that value of pi, defined on line number 2, is not available in the second function. It's not available in the sphere volume function, okay? Now, what that does mean is this, is that if I want a value for pi, for my second function, I must go and define it, okay? So I'll just make it 3.14, and then I can run the function, okay? So sphere volume, and then I can send a value, and now it won't crash, okay? And which of those pi's did it use? And they're different pi's, right? One's 3.14159 and the other's 3.14. It used the pi inside the function. The way that you really ought to think about this is that even though the variables are spelled the same way, because they are on different functions, they are different variables, okay? It's like two people with the same name, okay? That's what this really is. Oh, and let me show you something else as well, okay? I no doubt showed you before, like in chapter 1, if you defined a certain value, gave a value to a variable, you could like examine that inside of the console. But notice this, okay? I did call the sphere volume function. And so Python did say that pi would have, capital Pi would have the value 3.14, but apparently now once the function is complete, once we got its return value, pi is not defined. That variable, not only is it local to that function, but it only exists for so long as the function executes. Once we exit the function with the return statement, that variable ceases to exist. Yeah. Did you hit the right button? Try it again. Maybe it's an internet connection problem. But typically that means that if you've like written the function in the code editor, you didn't hit the run button. Or you did, but you've lost your internet connection or something. All right, so these are local variables, okay? These are local variables. They exist only inside of the function and only for so long as the function actually executes. Now, there's another place that you can place a variable. Oops. Did you know you could do that? You can fold the function up. It's kind of cool. You can get more code on the screen that way. What I'd like to do is this, is I would like to define at leftmost indentation, that is no indentation at all, I'd like to define a variable pi once again, okay? And I'm going to call that 3, okay? And I'm going to call that 3. And let's run. Okay, Python was perfectly happy. So let's do like, I don't know, circle area. And I'll just use 1, okay? So let's think about what that should be. Well, that's pi times radius squared. The radius is 1. 1 squared is just 1. So this is just pi times 1. Well, the question is this. Will it be 3, which is the pi on line number 1, or will it be 3.14159, which is the pi on line number 4?
I got two reasons. So one, the pi on 3.14159 is below pi 3, and pi 3.14159 is also in the definition of circle area.
The second answer you gave is the correct one. It's the one inside of circle area, okay? Now, again, the point is really this, okay? I told you before that the pi inside of the first function and the pi inside of the second function, those are really different pi's. And both of those are distinct from the pi that's outside of the function, okay? That pi that's outside of both of the functions, that's leftmost, okay? At leftmost indentation, that is no indentation. We say that that has global scope, okay? Global scope means that it doesn't exist within the body of any function, okay? And that global scope variable is a distinct variable from any of the local scope variables, okay? You must understand that. Now, let me show you one other thing, okay? So let me drop out the circle, the pi definition inside of the circle area function, okay? And then let me call circle area. Once again, I'll call it with 1, okay? Now, if you haven't done much work with Python, you might think that that this would be a problem, okay? You might think, well, when this function runs, on line number 4, it needs a value for pi, but the function never defined a value for pi, so it might say that pi is not defined. Oh, but it didn't say that at all. You see what value it returned? It returned the value of 3. So what value did it use for pi?
3.
It used the 3. Okay, so what just happened there? Well, I did not define pi locally. I did not define it inside of the function. So here's what Python did. It goes, oops, whoa, there's no local definition of pi. It's not defined inside the function. Guess I better go look for a global definition of pi. And if it finds a global definition of pi, it will use that global value. Okay, it will use that global value. That's just how Python works. Okay, if it doesn't find the variable defined locally, that is inside of the function, it will look for the variable defined globally. And if it finds it, if it finds it defined globally, it will use that global value. And thus ends the story of scope. Okay, that's how this works. And perhaps you can understand why this is important to have seen, because it would be very easy to write code that you think should work but won't because you don't understand how scope works. Yeah.
What number did you use for circle area length?
1. Oh, sorry, I can't see it. 1. So that pi 3 is the one that got used. Yes. Other question?
So, but we were having problems with them saying like sphere volume is not defined to figure out a solution.
Because what?
I was having the same issue where it was saying sphere volume was not defined. However, I eventually just figured out it was because it didn't backspace it enough.
Yeah, here's what you did. Okay, this is maybe actually something that we could look at real quick. I continue to record this. This is good to record as well. Here's what sometimes will happen. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. This could easily happen, right? Because you do circle area, and then you do line number 4, right? And then you think, oh, I'm going to go write a new function. So you just hit return, and then you hit return twice, actually, so you get that empty line. But then you don't backspace any, right? So notice that the DEF on line number 6 is at the same level of indentation as that line in the body of the first function on line number 4. And what Python will then take that to mean is that that DEF on line number 6 is a continuation of the body of the previous function, which you can absolutely do. You can define one function inside of another function. Python don't care. That's not what we want to do in this case, okay? And since it's not what you want to do in this case, well, it's not defined, okay? It's not defined. So yeah, so one could run it in this case, and then one could attempt to call sphere volume, and then put something into it, and it will say that it is not defined, okay? It will say that it is not defined, so, because it needs to be backed out. Oh, do you know that you can, I'll show you one other thing, and then I'll shut up. You can highlight a block of text and hit tab, and then all of it indents over. And do you know how to unindent, which is actually quite important to know in Python? Shift tab. Shift tab goes left, tab goes right. It's actually good to know. So, yeah, I'll be done.